my boyfriend dumped me on Valentine's Day. Yep, after I gave him this super thoughtful and expensive gift, he turned around and ended things. Turns out, he'd been catching feelings for his co-star in a show they're in together, and they even made out at some point, which he conveniently never mentioned to me. So here I am, a med student, trying to make sense of it all. We'd been dating, kind of on and off, for over a year. Last year, we took a few months apart when we realized we weren't quite aligned on what we wanted. But we found our way back to each other toward the end of the summer. He'd finally settled his living situation and nailed down a clear path in his career, and he told me he was ready to take things seriously. For a little background, he's in one of those elite music performance programs, kind of like Juilliard, super intense and competitive. Both of our schedules were nuts, but we still managed to see each other at least once a week. We kept in touch throughout the day when we could, texting and calling in between everything else. Honestly, I think I need to rewind a bit to explain why this whole breakup hit me so hard. We first met at a friend's party. He was playing piano, and I remember watching him, thinking he was cute. My friend had done some theater with him in undergrad and introduced us. Funny thing is, I wasn't even supposed to be there that night. I had finals coming up and planned to stay in and study, but my friend insisted I come out for a break. I gave in, and honestly, I'm glad I did. We ended up chatting about our favorite composers. I used to play the violin, and the next thing I knew, we were swapping numbers. Our first date was actually really sweet. He took me to this little jazz spot that I never would have discovered on my own. It had this old-school charm, and we ended up talking for hours. I remember feeling so refreshed by the whole thing. He was passionate about music, something totally outside my med school world. It was such a nice change from the usual guys I dated, who were all in the same field and always talking about exams and rotations. It got repetitive, honestly. We kept things casual for the first couple of months. But once things started getting more serious, we hit a few bumps. I was ready for something more real, and he was still trying to figure out where he stood and what he wanted. We had a big talk about it and decided to take a break. During that break, I poured myself into school and tried dating around a little, but no one really measured up to the connection I had with him. Meanwhile, I'd occasionally catch one of his performances when our mutual friends invited me. We were polite when we saw each other, but we kept our distance. I could see he was still navigating auditions and trying to figure out his next steps career-wise. As much as it hurt, I respected that he needed that time for himself, even if it meant he couldn't figure things out while staying in the relationship. Then one day, out of nowhere, he reached out and asked if we could grab coffee. He told me he missed me and that things were finally falling into place. He'd been accepted into this big deal program and had moved into a solid apartment near campus. He said he finally felt like he was in a place where he could really show up for a relationship. I was cautious at first. I didn't want to dive back in and get burned again. So we eased into things. Met up here and there, mostly for coffee or lunch when our schedules allowed. But I could tell he was different. He seemed more grounded, more secure in himself and his goals. It gave me hope. A few weeks into reconnecting, he showed up at my apartment with dinner from my favorite spot. He'd even checked in with my roommate to make sure I'd be home. That little bit of thoughtfulness caught me off guard. We ate, watched a movie, and for the first time in a while, I let myself believe we might actually have a shot at making it work. Things started to click after that. We gradually spent more and more time together, and about 3 months ago, he asked if we could make things official again. I was honestly over the moon. I really believed he'd grown, that he was ready to be in it with me this time. Our relationship felt strong, the connection was there, the bed was great, and we both got along with each other's friends really well. Sure, we had the occasional disagreement, what couple doesn't? But nothing we couldn't talk through. One time, we had a bit of a disagreement about how much time we were spending together. I was swamped with exam prep and needed to hunker down, but he felt a little pushed aside. Instead of fighting, we actually sat down and worked out a schedule that worked for both of us. It felt like a real sign of maturity, like we could handle life's curveballs as a team. I even introduced him to my parents when they came to town a while ago. My dad is usually super guarded when it comes to the people I date, especially after my last boyfriend cheated on me, but he seemed to genuinely like this guy. They bonded over music and whiskey, and my dad even invited him to visit us during the holidays. Later, my mom texted me saying she hadn't seen me that happy in a long time and thought he might be the one. So fast forward to today, Valentine's Day. I was bummed we didn't have any solid plans. He said he was slammed with classes during the day and rehearsals at night, but suggested we do dinner that weekend instead. I understood and told him that sounded fine. Still, I went out of my way to put something together for him. I dropped off a gift, something meaningful, along with a handwritten card to let him know I was thinking about him. The gift wasn't just any gift. I'd spent weeks putting it together. I managed to find these rare music sheets from his favorite composer, this obscure German guy he's obsessed with, and had to contact specialty shops in Europe to track them down. I even paid extra for rush shipping to make sure they got here in time. Along with that, I added a bunch of his favorite snacks and a really nice bottle of bourbon. He's a big bourbon guy, so I wanted it to be something he'd truly appreciate. I really put a lot of thought into the card, too. I wrote about how much I admired his dedication to his art and how proud I was of everything he'd accomplished lately. It wasn't just a gift, it was a whole gesture. I even drove all the way across town during my lunch break, between classes, just to drop it off with the concierge at his building so he'd come home to a little surprise. That afternoon was brutal. I'm doing my pediatric rotation right now, and I was totally drained. One of the kids I was assigned had this super complex case, and the attending kept quizzing me about every little detail while I was also trying to be emotionally present for the kids' worried parents. By the time I left the hospital, my brain felt like scrambled eggs. My roommate was out with her boyfriend, so I came home, threw on some sweats, reheated leftover pasta, and started watching some dumb show to zone out. That's when my phone rang. It was him. I got this little flutter in my stomach, thinking maybe he was calling to thank me for the gift. He called while he was on his way home, and he opened the gift and card while we were talking. He thanked me, said the bourbon was a great pick and that the music sheets were super thoughtful. We chatted like normal for a bit, and then I asked if we were still on for our date that weekend. That's when things took a turn. Instead of confirming, he asked if he could come by my place this weekend to talk. Now, just for context, he lives downtown, way closer to where we were supposed to go out, and I live way out in the suburbs. So him wanting to drive all the way out just to talk. Red flags everywhere. I'd already had a long day, and I really didn't want to spend the rest of the week with anxiety looming over me, wondering what this mystery conversation was going to be about. In my experience, when someone says they want to talk, it's rarely ever good. So I pressed him. I asked, why wait? Can we just talk now so I'm not dreading it all week? There was this long, heavy pause on the line. I could hear him exhaling, like he was trying to find the words. And right then, I knew. Something was seriously off. Then came the gut punch. He told me he's recently started developing feelings for a close friend of his. Someone he's known for 6 years. Apparently, they're playing romantic leads in the show he's rehearsing for, and now that they've been spending more time together in that kind of role, he's been catching feelings. He apologized and said he wanted to be upfront with me because it didn't feel right to stay in a relationship while feeling this way. I was in shock. I could feel my blood boiling. As he kept talking, he tried to explain that nothing physical had happened between them, but during rehearsals, especially the intimate scenes, he started to feel something, and he sensed it might be mutual. He said he hasn't acted on it or even brought it up with her. And, of course, he followed that up by saying he still cares about me and that his feelings for me haven't changed. I'd met this friend at a cast party a couple months ago after their winter showcase. She seemed nice enough on the surface, though kind of distant toward me. I figured maybe she was shy or had a long day, never imagined anything deeper was going on. I do remember them performing a duet that night. They definitely had chemistry on stage, but he always referred to her as just a good friend and colleague. He even mentioned she had a boyfriend, though I have no idea if they're still together now. I asked him straight up what he was hoping to get out of this conversation. He didn't say outright that he wanted to break up, but he went on about how he felt dishonest staying with me while dealing with these feelings. He wasn't sure if he'd ever even act on them, and he didn't really know what they meant, just that they were there and weighing on him. The whole time, I couldn't tell if he was trying to work through it or had already made up his mind. So I asked him point blank, "Are you breaking up with me?" And instead of giving me a clear answer, he gave me this vague, wishy-washy line about needing space to figure things out and not wanting to hurt me more than he already had. At that point, I called him out. I told him that was complete BS. Either we're together or we're not. That's when he finally admitted that, yeah, he thinks we should break up, but he still cares deeply about me and hopes we can stay in each other's lives. I didn't even respond. I just hung up. So, that's it. We're done. And right now, I don't even know what to feel because everything's just a swirl of hurt and anger and confusion. Am I being dramatic for thinking he handled this in the worst way possible? I mean, I get that technically he didn't cheat. He came clean before anything physical happened. But honestly? Emotional cheating still counts. And the timing, God. Why the hell would he wait until after Valentine's Day? After I spent all that time and energy planning a gift, pouring my heart into a card, making sure he felt loved? He could have told me before. Or waited a few days, even. But instead, he dropped this on me right after I went out of my way to show him how much I cared. It felt like such a slap in the face. The first thing I did after hanging up was text my best friend. She came over with wine and ice cream, no questions asked. I cried for 2 hours straight. And my best friend, who never sugarcoats anything, just sat there and said, "Yeah, that's F*** ed up timing." She even stayed the night because I was such a wreck. What makes this whole thing even worse is that I'm in the middle of studying for one of the biggest exams of my med school life. I've been juggling my clinical rotations, study sessions, and making time for this relationship, commuting into the city constantly to see him because it was always easier for me than it was for him with his rehearsals, and now I just feel like an idiot. God, I know I'm rambling. I'm just so tired. So hurt. So pissed. And I have to be at the hospital at 6 a.m. tomorrow for rounds. I haven't even touched my notes tonight. Valentine's Day. Of all days. After that phone call, I didn't hear a word from him for 3 whole days. Honestly, I didn't expect to, but that silence still stung. I just went into autopilot, wake up, head to the hospital, come home, pretend to study, cry, sleep, repeat. The same loop, over and over. It was probably for the best that he stayed quiet, but it didn't make it hurt any less. Thankfully, my roommate really stepped up. She made sure I was eating, checked in with me regularly, and never once made me feel like a burden. When my mom called to ask how my Valentine's Day went, I just lost it. I broke down crying on the phone. She immediately offered to fly in and be with me, but I told her I couldn't afford to be distracted. I needed to stay focused on my exam. A few quick clarifications, since some people have been messaging me. We're both in our mid-20s, and yes, I've wondered if his co-star might have feelings for him too. He told me he suspects she might, based on how she acts during their more romantic scenes, but they've apparently never talked about it directly. And just to clear something up, I mentioned before that we were broken up for now, but that was me writing in the middle of a breakdown. We're broken up. Like, really broken up. Whether or not we ever talk again? I have no clue. Also, thank you to everyone who's been commenting or reaching out. I've been reading everything, even if I haven't had the energy to reply. Some folks were asking about our earlier break last year. Basically, he wasn't sure he could handle a serious relationship while chasing his performing career. He was auditioning for programs all over the country, and he didn't want to do long distance if he ended up getting in somewhere far. So when he decided to stay local for this prestigious program, it felt like a real commitment, like he was finally choosing both me and his career. Clearly, I misread that. And for anyone wondering, yes, by musical performance, I mean theater, opera, that kind of thing. I've been vague on some details for privacy reasons, but what I can say is that he and this girl are playing romantic leads. He insists the feelings crept up on him during rehearsals, but lately, I've been wondering if there was something between them even before all this, and now he's just blaming the script for catching feelings. Anyway, I wanted to post an update now that a few days have passed. First of all, thank you. The advice, encouragement, and empathy from strangers really helped pull me back from that angry, chaotic headspace I was stuck in at the beginning. There was a lot of mixed feedback. Some people suggested I reach out for closure, others said to block him and never look back. I spent a lot of time sitting with that. The first night after everything went down, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, running through our entire relationship like a movie reel in my head. Replaying conversations. Trying to pinpoint red flags I might have ignored. Asking myself what I could have done differently. Yeah, I even went through every photo of us on my phone. Probably not the healthiest way to cope, but I was desperate to make sense of it. Those first couple of days were brutal. I almost called in sick to my clinical rotation, but I forced myself to go. Weirdly enough, being around patients helped. It reminded me that people are dealing with far worse things than heartbreak. There was one little kid, must have been 5 years old, going through treatment and handling it like a champ. Watching that kind of bravery made me feel like I could be a little stronger too. My friends really showed up for me. My roommate deep cleaned the whole apartment one day while I was at the hospital, just so I could come home to a calm space. Another friend from med school covered a part of my rounds so I could take a mental health break without having to explain myself. I don't take any of that for granted. Eventually, I decided to reach out to him. The way things ended had left me feeling blindsided and hollow, and I knew I needed to say something, not to fix things, but to give myself some peace. I shot him a text asking if we could talk. He called me almost immediately, which kind of surprised me. I figured he'd be caught up in rehearsals or busy pretending he hadn't just wrecked my week. We talked for about an hour. This time, I let him speak without interrupting. He went deeper into how everything happened. He said the show they'd been working on is emotionally intense, and because they've been spending 8 to 10 hours a day together, acting out love scenes, connecting as characters, he started developing real feelings. The line between acting and reality just got blurry, apparently. I stayed calm. I told him I appreciated his honesty and that breakups are never easy. I also told him how much it hurt to feel so disposable after everything we'd shared. I let him know how much of the relationship had been held up by my effort. I was the one commuting almost an hour just to see him. I planned our dates. I made sure he felt seen, cared for, celebrated. I never once used med school as an excuse to make him feel like a chore. I just made it work. And he actually said he hadn't realized how one-sided it all was. That floored me. Like, seriously? You never noticed I was doing the heavy lifting in this relationship? That I was always going to you, planning everything, remembering every detail about your life, while you just showed up? But even then, I held my ground. I didn't want to end this chapter screaming or crying. I told him I hoped he finds what he's looking for, and I meant it. But I also told him, very clearly, that I won't be waiting around if things with his co-star crash and burn. I'm not some placeholder he can come back to. He said he was sorry, truly sorry, and that he felt like absolute garbage for putting me through this. Said I didn't deserve any of it. And maybe that's true, but words don't undo the damage. So, that's where things are. We're over. And as much as it hurts, I think I'm finally starting to breathe again. So then, during that follow-up conversation, he dropped another little bomb. He told me that way back when they first started the program, almost 6 years ago, they had a drunk make-out session. Just one time, according to him. He swore up and down it meant nothing and that they both agreed afterward to just be friends. Hold on. What? That little detail never came up before. Not when he told me he was catching feelings for her, not when I asked about their history, not even when I met her in person. That's kind of a huge thing to leave out when you're explaining to your girlfriend why you're suddenly falling for someone else. I called him out on it. I asked him why he didn't mention this earlier, and he immediately got defensive. Said it was no big deal, that it was a drunken, one-time mistake and had nothing to do with what's happening now. Sure, maybe it didn't mean anything to him, but to me? That piece of history changes everything. Honestly, I'm starting to think he's been into her this whole time and just kept me around because she was either unavailable or uninterested. That realization hit hard. It made me feel like our whole relationship might have been a waiting game for him, like I was just the backup option, the safety net, until something better came along. I didn't say that to him, but man. It's been eating at me. Some of you called it a showmance, and yeah, I'm fully on board with that theory now. Especially with this new information. I looked it up. Apparently, showmances are pretty common in theater and performance settings. People spend hours a day pretending to be in love, and they start confusing those fake feelings with something real. It's like emotional osmosis or something. I actually talked to one of my friends who's done theater, and she confirmed it. She said showmances are basically a rite of passage in that world. Most of the time, they burn out once the show ends and reality sets back in. So who knows how long this thing will even last? But honestly, that's not my problem anymore. And just to answer a question I've been getting a lot, if he comes crawling back after all this blows over, would I take him back? No. Absolutely not. I've done the second chance thing before with him. I forgave him once, I gave him space to grow, and I believed him when he said he was ready. I'm not doing it again. I know my worth now. I refuse to be someone's just in case. To be clear, I don't think she's some homewrecker or anything. From what I can tell, she might not even know he has feelings for her. She's probably just trying to do her job, and now she's caught in this messy emotional triangle that she didn't ask for. And yeah, it's become painfully obvious that I was the one doing most of the emotional labor in the relationship. The commute, the planning, the gifts, the flexibility, I carried the weight. Looking back, it's so clear now. Funny how easy it is to see once you're outside of it. Don't worry, he's already blocked on everything. Phone, socials, email, the whole 9 yards. I needed a clean break. I didn't want any lingering "hope you're doing okay" text sneaking in and making me second-guess myself. I'm still sad. Of course I am. Trying to focus on studying for step 1, arguably the biggest exam of my life, is hard when your heart's in pieces. But in a weird way, it helps to have something so important to focus on. I don't have time to spiral too far when I'm drowning in flashcards and practice questions. The good news is, I'm surrounded by people who love me. My friends have been beyond amazing, checking in, feeding me, keeping me grounded. I genuinely don't know what I would have done without them this past week. I finally packed up all his stuff from my apartment. There wasn't a ton, just a few changes of clothes, some books, that mug he always used, and some toiletries. I put it all in a box. Haven't decided yet if I'm going to drop it off, toss it, or just let it sit there until I stop caring. I also wiped our photos from my phone and social media. Deleted the selfies, untagged the couple posts. But I kept one. It's a picture of me sitting at his piano, mid-laugh, looking genuinely happy. I'm keeping it, not for him, but for me. Because I like who I am in that photo. I like the version of me who could still light up a room, even when life was complicated. And that version of me still exists, with or without him. A few people asked if he still has the gift I gave him. Yeah, he does. The bourbon, the rare music sheets, all of it. I don't want it back. I mean, it was a gift. Asking for it back feels petty, even if part of me hopes he spills the bourbon on his sheet music and ruins both, lol. I actually found the receipt the other day when I was cleaning. I spent way more than I should have, especially on a med student budget. But that's the kind of partner I was, thoughtful, generous, all in. Lesson learned, though. No more high-effort gifts for low-effort men. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I might pop back in with another update if anything big happens, but honestly, I think this chapter is closed. And you know what? That's probably the best thing that could have happened.